Okay, so chapter 3. We're going to start out real slow. We're just going to take a look at the first half of verse 1 for a moment. He says, "You foolish Galatians, who has bewitched you?" So Paul starts out this chapter by telling the Galatians that they're foolish. And that means they aren't using their brains, but they are being driven by their emotions or by their feelings. One of the great tragedies of today is that we live in a culture that is abundantly emotion-driven. Okay? The only thing that seems to matter to people is how they feel. And that is what is determining morality. That is what is determining truth. Well, how do you feel about that? Well, how do you feel about that? Well, I feel like it's truth. I feel like it's a lie. Well, that's okay, because, for me it can be truth, and for you it cannot be truth. And we have all this nonsense going on. And Paul tells them, you are being driven by your emotions. You are not using logic. And as we've seen and will continue to see, some had come into Galatia and they were making these believers feel inadequate. They were making them feel like lesser Christians. So they're being convinced by their feelings instead of logic. And then Paul asks a rhetorical question. We do that sometimes on Wednesday nights, don't we? We ask rhetorical questions. An answer is not expected. And his question is, who has bewitched you? And that word bewitched, it's the idea of who has fascinated you. Paul is asking them, who got your attention? Who caught your eye? Who has changed your focus off Jesus and now onto something else? Okay, so pick it up at the second half of verse 1 then. Before your very eyes, Jesus Christ was clearly portrayed as crucified. I would like to learn just one thing from you. Did you receive the Spirit by observing the law, or by believing what you heard? Are you so foolish? After beginning with the Spirit, are you now trying to attain your goal by human effort? Have you suffered so much for nothing if it really was for nothing? Does God give you His Spirit and work miracles among you because you observe the law, or because you believe what you heard? Throughout chapter 3 and into chapter 4, Paul is going to make a very logical argument for the necessity and the full satisfaction of Christ. In other words, we need Jesus and nothing more. Paul is going to make the case that the only thing that saves us is Jesus. And he's going to make that case by asking a series of questions. And Paul is going to force, by logic, the Galatians to admit that Jesus saves and only Jesus saves.